Imagine a world where death lurks in every shadow. A cough, a swollen lump, a strange fever, and you know your time has come. In the mid-14th century, that nightmare became reality. The Black Plague, or Black Death, swept across Europe and killed up to 50 million people, nearly half the population. To medieval men and women, it felt like the end of days, and in many ways it was. Entire villages vanished. Parents abandoned their children. Faith in God wavered. The smell of death clung to every street. Tonight, we'll take a chilling journey into the darkest chapter of the Middle Ages and uncover how the plague changed Europe forever. The Black Death arrived in 1347 aboard 12 ships docking in Messina, Sicily. Dock workers were met with a horrifying sight. Nearly every sailor was either dead or dying, their bodies covered in black swellings, their blood and pus oozing. What they didn't know was that the real killers were stowaways, fleas hiding on rats. These fleas carried Yersinia pestis, a bacterium that turned the human body into a death sentence. Within weeks, the disease spread inland. From Italy, it raced across Europe like wildfire. By 1348, the Black Death had reached Paris, London, and beyond. Nowhere was safe. The symptoms were as terrifying as the speed of the disease. Victims developed painful swellings the size of apples, buboes, in the armpits, groin, and neck. These turned black with infection, giving the plague its chilling name. Soon came fevers, vomiting blood, and uncontrollable pain. In many cases, victims coughed so violently, they tore the lining of their throats. Death could strike in as little as 24 hours. Families watched their loved ones waste away in agony, powerless to help. Fear spread faster than the disease itself. People refused to touch each other or even breathe the same air. Neighbors boarded up their doors. Some cities went silent, broken only by the wails of the dying and the toll of funeral bells. Medieval life turned into a waking nightmare. Towns that once bustled with trade and laughter became ghostly and deserted. The dead piled up so quickly that graveyards overflowed. In London, pits large enough for hundreds of bodies were dug and filled daily. The stench was unbearable. Chroniclers wrote that the smell of death hung over entire cities. Plague doctors, wearing their now iconic beaked masks stuffed with herbs, shuffled through streets. But the mask was no miracle. It was only false hope. Their patients died one after another, often within hours. Parents abandoned sick children. Husbands left dying wives. Even priests and monks sometimes fled in terror. As one Italian writer put it, brother abandoned brother. Fathers and mothers refused to see their children. The bonds of society shattered under the weight of fear. For a deeply religious society, the plague was seen as God's punishment. Panic fueled extreme measures. Bands of flagellants roamed from town to town, whipping themselves until their backs were raw and bloody, hoping their suffering would appease divine wrath. Crowds gathered to watch, chanting prayers through tears. But fear also bred violence. Thousands were tortured and burned alive in horrific massacres. Instead of healing, the plague drove people into madness and cruelty. Even the church suffered. Entire monasteries perished. Priests who tried to minister to the sick died in droves. Others ran, abandoning their parishes. Faith wavered, and whispers of doubt spread. If God could not save them, then who could? When the plague finally loosened its grip, Europe was unrecognizable. So many had died that fields went unplowed, and villages were left empty. In England alone, entire Entire hamlets disappeared from maps forever. Wolves roamed the countryside, feeding on the corpses left behind. But in this devastation came unexpected change. With labor so scarce, surviving peasants suddenly had bargaining power. They demanded better wages and living conditions, something unthinkable before the plague. Feudalism, the centuries-old system binding peasants to their lords, began to crumble. Wealth shifted, trade routes adapted. From the ashes of despair, the seeds of a new Europe began to grow. The Black Death scarred Europe for centuries. Population recovery took more than 150 years. Some noble families and bloodlines vanished forever. But medicine advanced. Physicians, desperate for answers, began questioning old ideas and searching for natural causes. Universities grew in importance. The arts reflected new themes of mortality, with grim dance of death imagery reminding people that death spared no one. Most importantly, society no longer blindly accepted authority. The Church's failure to protect its people planted seeds of reform that would later erupt across Europe. The Black Plague was not just a disease. It was terror. It was despair. It was the death of an old world. But from that horror rose something unexpected. Change. Society shifted, knowledge expanded, and Europe slowly crawled toward the Renaissance. The plague reminds us of the fragility of life and the resilience of humanity. Even in the darkest times, the seeds of rebirth can grow. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy stories from history. Also, you can leave a comment down below about your favorite era of history.